Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. I'm Andy Rowe and Big Jim and Goodey are with me as usual. We'll be looking back at a high-scoring final weekend of regular season in the Premiership, as well as the final 8 in the URC. Plus, we'll be chatting to Harlequins and South African centre André Esterhuizen. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you're subscribed on Spotify.
Pod. Rugby Pod.
How was your Jubilee weekend, lads?
Andy Rowe. I didn't see much of the Jubilee. On social media, I saw a bit. The concert looked good, and that's about it, really. It was good to see the Queen doing her thing. 70 years. My goodness me. God save the Queen and all that, which a lot of people think that God save the Queen is English saying, for example. And I say that because it's the English national anthem. God save our gracious Queen. Doesn't sound right. Coming out of my vocal cords, it doesn't sound right. But
you have sang it.
I have sang it because I'm British, Andrew, and I'll tell you why. And I'm piggybacking our good friend John Pennycook, aka Cookie, the Scotland kit man, now the Edinburgh kit man. So when we would play England, right, which was a lot, I played them a few times in my career, and obviously belting out Flower of Scotland, and it's belted out significantly louder when you play against the English. I'd always look at the bench, look at the crowd, just have a look around, see what other people are doing during the anthems. And without being horrible to England, right, and I am a quarter English, and I stand here with a North Hebridean English accent, but the English national anthem is one of the worst, I think. Not because it's the Queen, just because it's a shit anthem. Nothing to do with the Queen. You could say King, you could say Dog, you could say anything you want. Replace it with Queen. It doesn't matter. It's still a shit anthem, right? But I'd watched John Pennycook, Cookie, sing God Save the Queen. And I said to him, mate, well, like, you're Scotland till you die. Why are you singing that? And he's a military man, right? And he's like, it's a British anthem. That's how we used to see it. So I didn't feel as bad humming it then, because when England football team were playing, I support England, or I used to. So I could sing the anthem then, but I wasn't aware. But anyway, I'm not a royalist by any means, but I did enjoy it at the weekend, and watching, with everything that's happened over the last few years, everyone come together. And all the concerts and the band. I'm just gutted, Andrew, that we didn't get a bus for the 2000 for this podcast for 2000 and whenever it was 15 onwards. Where the hell is our Benga bus? Where is it?
I don't know, Jim. I don't know. I enjoyed watching it, actually. Obviously, Jim says he's not a royalist. I am a massive fan of the royal family. What the Queen, Her Majesty, has done for our country in leadership has been phenomenal for 70 years. She's 96 years of age. I mean, what an innings. 70 years of those 96, she's been our Queen. Just phenomenal. So I loved it, and it's great to see them all packed with people and Union Jacks. And there'll be a few. Andy Ray, you must have been a tourist, being a Kiwi. You must have gone down there at some point.
Well, I loved it. I went down to
I
went down to the parade on Thursday, and we got there at about 9 a.m. and it was absolutely rammed all along St James's Park down the Mall. And we watched everyone go past, we watched the horses go past, we watched the carriages go past with all the royals, and everyone's waiting for the Queen. On the way down to the trooping, we don't see the Queen. Well, everyone's waiting, she's not there. And then on the way back, we're reading in the thing, in the order of events, that she's going to be leading the parade back to Buckingham Palace. So we're thinking, oh yeah, we're definitely going to see her. All the royals go past, everyone goes past, we don't see the Queen. And everyone's just sitting there going, where the fuck is the Queen? And it turns out...
Do not swear when you say the Queen. Do not say where the Queen.
Where is our beautiful Queen? Where is she? So she couldn't go in a carriage, so they put her in a tinted out car. So she did drive past us, but she had tinted out windows. So everyone that was there to see the Queen didn't even get to see her, which was a bit of a shame.
Did you have your hat on with the beer cups either side with the straw?
You know I did, Jim. You know I did.
I know you did. Oh my goodness me. Well, I'm glad you didn't see it, because I've heard she's a fan of the Rugby Pod. Maybe not as much now, because her grandson, however you look at Tyndall in that, he does obviously another podcast as well, and she might be listening to his. But if she wants real rugby insight, she's listening to ours, and she obviously does, because Princess Anne is a patron of Scottish rugby. So effectively, all the royals listen to this, so they would have been looking out for you, Andy Rowe. So I'm glad they didn't see you. I'm glad they didn't see you with that stupid out of yours.
Otherwise, a good weekend, lads.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Couple of days out with the family, and then a day with my extended family in Leicester with Jim Hamilton.
I was there. Went down to see my family in the Midlands at the weekend and thought, why not go and see a game of ruggers? A high-scoring, unbelievably high-stakes match. It was absolute turd. But the company was good. The company was good. It was good being back in Leicester. It's one of them things, and I said to Goodey when we were there, actually, nostalgia. Now, you get that throughout your life, whether or not it's listening to music or walks down memory lane. There's history in Leicester, right, with myself. I don't mean as in like championship history. Like there's history when I go back to Leicester.
Life history.
Like literally life, okay? Used to tear up the place, good and bad. And I was on the way down. I spoke to Goodey on the phone on the way down. So I'm looking forward to being there. We were reminiscing through the old stories, which is not for publishing. It might come out in a book one day if I'm at the end of life, and I'm happy to go out on my sword. But history is all I'm saying. But also, apart from the stadium's got bigger and the buildings around have got bigger, nothing's changed apart from people aging. The same people are there, the same kind of energy. Last time I was there, well, I say last time I was there, I mean, it was 3 years ago. Leicester weren't that good. But before that, when I was there, Leicester were top of the league. They were winning things back in the day. And it just felt like I was home. That's what it felt like. Weirdly enough, it felt like I was home. So it was good to go back, seeing Andrew Good in fine fettle, just reeling off all the riffs, weren't he? He's just the corporate box host king. Is that a thing, Andrew? Do you want to be labelled as that or not?
Well, it's the Andy Good suite in Leicester now, pretty much, isn't it? So there's a few. I had a call from Saints the other day, see if I go and host there as well. And I don't think that's going to go ahead. But yeah, listen, it's good to have you there. My favourite bit, and I had to tell the missus this one when I got back on Saturday night. We went out for dinner with friends on Saturday night, and my favourite bit of reminiscing with Jim, talking in the car on the way to Leicester. Jim was obviously coming down from Edinburgh. I was driving up from Buckinghamshire, where I live, and we were chatting about the days of life. And when I say life, I mean the nightclub life. And I'm sure we can say this. I definitely
Andrew,
can say this.
Keep it clean, keep it PC.
Well, it's the one story that you probably can tell. We're reminiscing about the days of being in the toilets, having a pish. And there'd be either Jim or Davey Pish, which is Davey Young, Brett Deacon, whoever it was, Michael Holford, any of the young lads would grab the mop from the toilets that's been mopped up, the sick, the piss, in its bucket, and you'd be in the toilets and Jim or someone would just be mopping people. They'd be whacking them in the face with this mop. Do you remember the mop that had all the really long...
I wouldn't say whacking, I would say massaging, Andrew.
So you basically, and I was laughing my head off thinking about it and reminiscing, boys just getting mopped in the face with the bucket and the mop that had been cleaning the toilets, cleaning the sick up off the floor, and you just get that in your face while you're having a piss. I mean, what times, eh? And then you go out on the dance floor and you're absolutely buzzing. I remember once someone, I was going to name, I can't name him. His name's Jordan. I can't remember what his surname is. Might be Murphy. He took the mop out on the dance floor and was trying to mop people on the dance floor in life. And just imagine getting hit with a mop like that in a nightclub when you've got your best clothes on. You're trying to crack on with a girl or a boy or whoever you're allowed to, and then you get the piss mop in your face. Absolutely stinking.
Immune system, though, absolutely bulletproof. Back then, I was never ill. And you know what? You knew it was coming as well, because it went from just being mopped and you were absolutely raging. It was actually Davey Young, PhD, Piss Ed Dave. It was him who basically started it, to the point where you could hear a parade following you into the toilet with a, you mop, you mop, you mop, you mop, you mop, you mop, you mop. And then next thing, I mean, if you need a shit, don't. Like, if you sat down, not only did the mop come in, the bucket came in as well. So
who has a shit in a nightclub anyway?
Well, I tell you now, they had this pizza, which was behind obviously the pizza bit that we used to rob as well, and they obviously knew we were coming, because I reckon it was 3 weeks old. So if you've had that, 10 minutes later, tell the shits that. So it's a double whammy. So you didn't know whether to eat, you didn't know whether to shit. And if you walked into the establishment of the men's toilets, you were getting you mopped. That's all I know.
Before we get on to the Premiership, Eddie Jones named another squad for the training camp this week. What have you guys made of it?
Who cares? It's an England squad for training. You're probably better off not being in it because you're going to get injured. But in reality, they play the Barbarians in a couple of weeks. None of the semi-final teams have obviously got any players in there. There's a few boys coming back, so it's great to see Jack Noel back fit. He played at the weekend. He's back in the squad. But, oh, mate, it's another Eddie Jones squad where it's going to be loads of changes next week. So I ain't really bothered about it, to be honest, until we start to see the proper squad go to Australia.
All I know is Ravo and Brownie, Alex Brown, are absolutely raging because I've heard that Freddie Clark had in his contract that if he got called up to an England squad, his salary doubles. So
yes, you're welcome.
There's a positive. There's a shining light there. And I don't want to belittle that England squad because I understand, Goodey, like you're right in what you're saying. Like it obviously isn't. There's still 2 rounds to go in terms of the semi-final and the final. And then the big dogs will come back in. But it gives you a sense, doesn't it, who's there and thereabouts. Like Bialo, for example, at Wasps. We know that he's a good player. He's a powerful athlete. That Eddie Jones wants to come and watch him. Freddie Clark, who we had on the podcast last week, that not that they're not a million miles away, because we know that Eddie Jones will pick players that are a million miles away, put them into the squad, get them injured, then send them home and never to be seen again. But I think it's nice reward for especially someone like Freddie Clark. You know, Gloucester at the weekend, we'll get onto it, unbelievable against Saracens, finished 5th in the Premiership this year. It's good reward for what's been a kind of, I was going to say a breakthrough season for them, but a top season for them, and someone like Freddie Clark and Bialo, who's played more at Wasps, just to name 2.
Well, we'll talk about Gloucester in a minute, but first of all, they had to hope that Northampton put their boots on the wrong way, and they didn't. They pumped Newcastle, didn't they?
They did, yeah, they did. But I'll be honest, it was the first 25 minutes, whatever it was, half an hour, it was basically a team run for Northampton. And then they get into half-time, Dino's got his old spuds out again, I reckon. And it was Dino's last game. I think Saints at half-time took their boots off and put the flip-flops on because Newcastle came back into it and it came a bit hairy. And people are thinking, actually, I remember I said last week around Wolves were beating Leicester and Villa were beating Man City in the football. I'm thinking, no, there's no way that Newcastle, after all the shit that Jim's given them on this podcast, could come back. And they started to come back, scored a couple of tries, and then they had Sean Robinson sent off. And it just went tits up. It was about 60 points in the end, wasn't it? So, listen, Saints were really good in parts. They played some sparkling rugby. Their offloading game, the backline they've got, the players in that backline. Tommy Freeman is absolutely class. He got a hat-trick. Obviously, Furbank's in the backline. Hutchinson, one of my favourite players. They all look classy. They're offloading game. They're understanding of when to get a second touch. They were brilliant, but they have got moments where they switch off. So Newcastle came back into it. But yeah, it was festival rugby, wasn't it?
And I think when you look at it, again, I'll say it's summer rugby, the conditions were perfect for Northampton. Sam Matavesi, I thought a hooker. We've not spoken about him at all this year, really, but he's been carving it for Northampton as well. Unbelievable pitch. As we know, Franklin's Gardens, everyone said it's the best pitch to play on in the Prem. I'm sure around Europe as well. Grass, people like that, players like that, knees like that. And I think we all knew that it was going to happen. I like the fact that Newcastle gave it a go. I know there was a few things that happened. There was sin bin, should have been a red card in the game as well. I'm not going to call players out. There's no point in this part of the season. But for Northampton, it was, the scoreline reflects it, doesn't it? And interestingly, walking around London today, someone came up to me and was like, Northampton fan. Don't normally say that because we've not been that good in recent years. And he's going to the game against Leicester. And he said that all his family are coming out. And it's like, the Leicester Northampton derby, it used to be a thing. And I was like, you know what? As superficially as you've said that, as a Northampton fan, you're exactly right, mate. Leicester Northampton, back in the old school days, and I say that a few years ago, in a knockout game, it's on. And I look at the top 4, how it's finished, and the rivalry historically between the 4 teams. Obviously, Saracens, Harlequins will come on to, but the Leicester Northampton. If Northampton can play how they play and have confidence and stretch the ball, I think they've got the ability to beat Leicester. But it shows against Newcastle, if they put the flip-flops on, then they can have a number of tries scored against them. But yeah, I've been impressed with Northampton this year. Not a team that we've spoken about much, and fully deserved to be in the semi-final.
And they had to play well against Newcastle, didn't they? Because Saracens, what happened there, Jim?
Oh, my 50. Oh,
I don't even think I can make a gesture about it and say, oh, they put out a second team / third team. But they did. They did. Paul Jackson-Ray. Yeah, they kind of did. I know Lozowski was playing as well, our good mate Loza. And there was a few other high-profile names.
Shall I tell you what I think, Jim? That is what happens when you comply with the salary cap. When you've got to put the shags out, you've got to put the bin juice out. Normally, when it's Jim Hamilton getting a game, you take 50, don't you?
Or when you've made top 2 already and it doesn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, you could package it like that. Or you play against Saracens, again, a team that hammered you in the Challenge Cup and embarrassed you a little bit. And I think that's what we saw. Gloucester obviously would have had one eye on Northampton, Newcastle, knowing that it would have been a foregone conclusion. Everyone would have thought the same as us. They knew they obviously had to put Saracens to bed, and that's exactly what they did. And I went back and watched that game. I thought Gloucester would win. So when the team got announced and I saw Gloucester's team and I saw Saracens' team, but I didn't think in the manner in which they did. And let's say it straight, they got mauled to the cowsheds and back. Effectively, that is what happened.
Yeah, blame Swinno.
Man, I don't want to call people out, but when you're too old, you're too old, aren't you? That's as simple as it is. No, I'm not. No, I'm only joking. Swinno's been brilliant this year. Collectively, the Gloucester pack dominated Saracens up front, and then the rest kind of followed. And we can talk about Adam Hastings' wonderful offload. Carreras at fullback, who I thought was excellent again. But it was a day for Gloucester. But they went back to what they've been known for, especially at the front end of the season, where they were in the top 4 for the majority of it, right through to the DNA of George Skivington, and that is more into the cowsheds and back. And I thought they were excellent.
I'll tell you one thing about Swinno, though. I have heard on the grapevine he's dyed his beard ginger because he keeps getting recognised as Jim Hamilton. People go up to him, Jim, you legend. He's like, no, it's Tim Swinson here. So he's dyed his beard ginger, very ginger as well, so that he doesn't look like you anymore, Jim.
He wears boat shoes. Now, just look down. If someone's wearing a pair of edgy horse riding boots who looks like they should be in a Western movie, that's me. That's me. If someone looks like they're sailing boats around the Isle of Man and the Isle of Skye, that's Swinno. So I don't know. It's one of them, isn't it, for Saracens? It's a snapshot really of where they've been a little bit this season, without being too harsh. And when we were winning stuff back in the day, when you mentioned the salary cap or when we had a bigger squad, we still had performances like that. We mentioned the game against Wasps a couple of times, had 50 points put on us at the Rico, had 60 points put on us when it was Allianz Park back then. And it's a bit of an awakener, isn't it, for Saracens? Because it's not just well beaten; they were hammered.
Well, it was, and they had the right to do it, right? And I said it last season. I did the Sale Harlequins game on BT at the back end of last season, and Sale were pushing to try and make top 4. Quins had already made top 4, and Quins put a second team out. So Sale won it comfortably, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's you disrespected the competition." Every team's got the right to pick whatever team they want. Now, obviously, Saracens have played games recently, more games recently than some of the others because they obviously played in the Challenge Cup semi-final. So they felt that they could rest players and give some of the players opportunities. But they'll be banging for this weekend. They're playing Quins. There's a lot of hatred there between the two teams. So they had every right to pick who they wanted, but in doing so, they took 50.
Goodey, before you get too confident, Wasps couldn't make the final Champions Cup spot, could they?
Mate, no biggie. Leicester finished top of the league. I'm Leicester Tigers. And Wasps. No, listen.
Are you still Wasps or not? Yes or no? Let's just get it out here.
I'm both, mate.
But you were more Wasps last year. You were more Wasps last year.
No, this year. Which season are we talking about?
As in last season. So, as in not the season where Leicester finished top last season.
Jim, I live in the present, mate. I live in the present.
Andrew, you mentioned salary cap 25 times this year, so you don't.
Very true. Listen, no one's beaten Leicester at Mattioli Woods Welford Road this year, have they? In the Premiership. So Wasps going there is always going to be a tough task. Wasps, where they lost the top 8 spot was when they were about 30 points up against London Irish a few weeks back, and London Irish came back and drew the game. That's why they lost the 3-point differential. So I couldn't ever, you look at the two teams, I couldn't see them going to Welford Road and winning. And obviously myself and Jim were there. I was there with my Leicester Tigers shirt on. hosting the corporate, and the best team won.
Worcester and Bath worth the conversation.
Well, I think it is. How about a Bath?
Well, this is the thing. Like we said, how good would the Premiership last round have been had there been relegation? Because that game it was 13th against 12th, everything on it. Obviously, Newcastle, who were in that mix as well, they were away at Northampton. It would have been unbelievable. But
are they bringing it back at all or not?
It'll be back in some guys in a year's time, hopefully next year or the year after. But again, it's all relevant to other teams, and we need to go back. Personally, massive advocate for a 12-team league. They wanted to try and make it 14 and then talk about splitting it to 2 pools of 7 and all this stuff. To me, that becomes way too convoluted. It needs to go back, I think, personally, to 12 teams. There needs to be investment in the Championship, and there needs to be a jeopardy of a proper relegation. The problem is, once you've got all 13 teams in the league, all the owners have to agree to what happens next, and you're never going to get all the owners agreeing to one team being relegated, I don't think, because they're protecting their own assets. And they have said, Premiership Rugby have said that relegation will come back in one form or another, be it a playoff game initially to then maybe a 1 up, 1 down. But they wanted 14 teams in the Premiership. Ealing weren't allowed up because their ground wasn't good enough. Yet Bath finished bottom, and if Bath got relegated, technically their ground wouldn't be good enough to come back up. So, very convoluted.
Well, it was defence optional at Sandy Park. Quins lost 47-38 at Exeter. They already knew they were safely through in 3rd spot, didn't they?
Exactly that. It's a hard weekend to talk about rugby because most of it was done effectively, and we knew that Northampton were going to win. So when we talk about the rugby this weekend, it was a bit of a dead rubber, in all honesty. I know that the top 8, and credit to London Irish for making it into the top 8 and getting Champions Cup rugby, that was really the only talking point, and who was going to finish bottom, because we knew that the top 3 was going to look how it looked. So, Exeter, if you evaluate their season, it's been a tough one for them. Again, we don't want to go around the houses on it, but they've got to be better. I think they expect better. I think the fans expect better, and it'd be interesting to see where they go in terms of recruitment, having lost a couple of big names. Obviously, O'Flaherty's off to Sale, Johnny Hill's off to Sale, and it's an interesting one Exeter at the minute because they've been so good, so dominant there or thereabouts, and it's weird to see them in 7th place this season.
Well, speaking of Jim's Harlequins and their semi-final with Saracens, we can have a chat now with Quins and South African centre André Esterhuizen. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thanks. You?
André, it's class to have you on. It's been a long time coming. We didn't know whether Joe Marler said that you weren't allowed to come on or something like that, but it's been a while. It's great to have you on finally.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it's been a while. We had a couple of chats, but finally, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. André, we were talking about your game and we were talking about this week's rugby as we lead into the semis and the finals. How hard was it playing this week for a team, kind of knowing that you'd already secured that position? Was it almost like a bit of a token gesture? How hard is that compared to what's going to be next week's game, which is a knockout game?
Yeah, it's always going to be a tough game, especially you always have it in the back of your mind that it is almost like a nothing game. So we had to obviously put our emphasis on getting our stuff right for preparation for next week. We've tended to start most of our matches bad and have to fight back in the second half or so. But now, we said we wanted to start fast. We did, but then it became a one for you, one for me kind of thing. We didn't really get what we wanted out of the game, but
Who you got there?
Sorry.
Hello there.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Hey, André, don't be sorry, mate. The England fans are going to be well happy with this because is that an English-born child?
No, he's born in South Africa. My daughter's born here.
We're going to claim him anyway. If he's got your DNA, we're definitely claiming him as English.
We'll be here long enough to get the passport. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, let's talk about that. You spoke about always wanting to start big. It's become a massive thing for Quins, hasn't it? You know, pulling, getting back from big sort of deficits and finding a way to win. It started obviously in the semi-final last year. You've done it numerous times this year. As a squad, are you sat there talking about it all the time, saying how are we starting so slowly, but then we're so good and winning all these games? What can you put your foot on the reason why? Or
it is a good thing in a way, but it's always also a bad thing, because as a squad, we know we are never beaten. We know we can always come back. Doesn't matter the deficit, but we actually can't put our finger on it. The matches that we have started well, we ended well as well. So the thing, we actually put a massive emphasis on it, just to start the game well, get into the game early. So yeah, hopefully our prep as us going in the right direction, and hopefully we can on Saturday we can start fast, especially against a team like Saracens. That's one of the toughest sides to get back into a game, if you are behind. So yeah.
How is that mindset, André? So having played in South Africa, I don't want to stereotype South Africa as a country, but you are normally a team internationally that like to build a score tactically, and now you're playing at a team where you could be 30, 40 points down and you'll score 50 or 60, it doesn't matter. So for you personally, how is that a difference in mindset? Is there been a big shift for you being in games like that where you could be 30 points down?
Yeah, especially in South Africa, if you get the penalty, you take the 3. Whereas here, you never ever take the 3. Our mindset is always to go for the try and score first. So it was quite a big change and mindset change, because a few times on the pitch, I'm standing there, just take the 3 points, and then they go for the corner. Most of the times it has worked, so I'm glad to that. But yeah, personally, my mindset has changed already. So I like to go for the corner as well now. But yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. It's entertaining. So yeah.
It's obviously something that's working exceptionally well there. Whether you're 30 points up or 30 points down, that mindset doesn't change. But obviously, playing with players like Marcus Smith and Caden Murley and Lewis Liner and these guys, young English guys that have got an abundance of energy. You're obviously thinking at times, take the 3 because you're absolutely knackered because you're hitting it up. We've had a few of them on the podcast that call you the cheat code. Like, you are playing ridiculously well and they appreciate it. So there's obviously a lot of mutual respect there from a big South African boy coming in who, people might think is just straight up and down, to playing this fancy Dan Quins way, which works exceptionally well. These young kids are good, aren't they?
Yeah, thanks so much for that. But yeah, we've got, I can't remember. I think most of the backline is under the age of 23. Except for me and DC, and I'm still young actually. I just feel old in this squad. So yeah, a lot of young talent, especially in our team, coming through at the moment. So it's great for the future. I mean, Caden is probably, in my eyes, one of the best wings in England at the moment. And with Lana, Marcus, it's all world-class players, and they're also young, so very exciting. Yeah, and I love playing with them.
Yeah, it's been class watching you in the Prem, André. I think everyone is talking about you. Just give the listeners a kind of snapshot how you've ended up there. How have you gone from being in South Africa, World Cup champions, and we know a lot of the South African lads do move up to Europe, but very rarely do they come in. I know there's a few at Leicester that are carving up as well, but none have carved up as much as yourself. How have you ended up at Harlequins?
Yeah, so obviously I played the Springboks in 2018 last. One or two more games in 2019, just before the World Cup, and I didn't make the cut. But just before that, I actually made the decision I think it's time for me to go, especially with the family and stuff. In South Africa, it is sometimes tough. Yeah, you have to be realistic with crime and everything, and where you want to raise your child. So yeah, I was just thinking it's time for me to go. Change of scenery always does your rugby well as well for me. And yeah, ended up at Harlequins. and got lucky that I ended up here with my best mate, Steph Levis. So yeah, and then my first season was a rocky one with the 2 red cards. But yeah, I enjoyed the rugby, and luckily I got back to win the final and stuff. But yeah, and then this season we kicked off quite well. Yeah, so at the moment, loving the Prem, the competitiveness. Like the bottom team can win the top team any day of the week, and I think that's what I like about the whole competition.
Yeah, and André, just with the lifestyle element, I know we're segueing slightly on here. I mean, Goodey played at Natal Sharks for a little bit. I lived in Durban for a year. I go to South Africa regularly. I think it's one of the most amazing countries in the world. But I think it's a really interesting and honest take that you've given us here, which a lot of players will back up. A lot of players go to France and they never leave France from a South African perspective. What do you mean when you say from a lifestyle element? Because you're living in London, which can be a little bit dangerous. I know that you won't be living in central London. You'll be out by Richmond or somewhere lovely like that and leafy. But just give us a snapshot on what you mean by South Africa in that sense and bringing up a family.
Yeah, I live in a very quiet area, luckily. I'm not much of a city boy. So, yeah, I think it's just different. I definitely didn't come for the weather. I can promise you that. But lifestyle-wise, it's you don't have to hold your kid in the supermarket. Small stuff like that.
Small stuff.
No, it's not that small. But yeah, it's a lot of things. I mean, in South Africa, you don't see people just jogging at night because you can't do that stuff. You can't just let your kid walk to school or something like that. It's so common and a lot. I'm not saying it's so safe, nothing can happen here, but it's a lot safer here than in South Africa. But don't get me wrong, I'll probably still end up back in South Africa someday. Home is always home, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
There should be a lot of rand to take back with all the contracts that you've got going on at the minute. And I want to talk about the house. Obviously, you must have needed a bigger house because the amount of man of the match accolades you've had. You've obviously won the RPA Player of the Year. It just keeps happening time after time, doesn't it? Have you got space in your house for all these bottles of champagne and medals and all this stuff now?
Yeah, I'm not even a big champagne drinker, but yeah, I've got enough space for them. Luckily, I haven't won a lot previously in my life, so now I have a bit of space for them.
I'll tell you who does drink champagne, and that's Rassi. We love him on here, and he might have been drinking the champagne when he's tweeted that video over the weekend. I'm not too sure what's happened. But has he been in contact, André? I know it's the $1 million question, right? I know you've answered this question about your eligibility around England and stuff, and naturally people are going to be talking about you because you've played so well this season. Is there much chat with the South African coaches? I know that there has been, but can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Yeah, obviously, we are chatting at the moment. See how things go. They'll only announce a squad once South African teams fall out of the URC. 2 in the semi-finals weekend. So we'll see what happens. But there is a lot of chat at the moment. Obviously I can't say too much. And yeah, it's looking good.
Well, no, that's great. That's great. That's what I mean. I think that's what we want to hear. That's what it should be. And I think what we like about Rassi and what we like about the South African influence of what they've done is they're allowing players like yourself and like Jasper Wiese to go to Leicester and play. And they're not just throwing you away and saying, well, no, you're doing that, so we're not interested, like Wales. Yeah. But anyway, let's not get political on Welsh rugby. But that's great to hear.
Yeah, no, that's nice. Thanks.
It is really good to hear because I'm going to message Rassi and basically you'll be vice captain before you know it because we message on Twitter every now and again. I haven't messaged him about the video that he put out, but I will drop him a message. Talking about playing for South Africa, then obviously I've got to bring up and I tweeted it actually the video a long time ago when you've run into Owen Farrell, he's hit you high. It should have been a penalty to South Africa. It was one of my biggest, most viral videos out there on Twitter, so I loved it. You're coming up against Saracens this weekend. First and foremost, the battle between Quins and Sarries. You must know the history and the hatred and all that.
Yeah.
Has that been spoken about this week?
Yeah, I think it's spoken about every game we play them. So yeah, I know, I understand 100% the hatred between the two clubs. Yeah, it's a very emotional game, especially for I think for both sides. So yeah, it is going to be a big one. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it a lot.
Yeah,
you're going to get the chance to run. You're going to get the chance to run at Owen Farrell then and see how that contact. I can't wait to watch it. I'd pay a load of cash to see that.
Yeah, it's actually the first time we play against each other again since that game. But it's a normal question. I actually run it every 10 every weekend. So if he's playing 10, then I probably am going to run at him. So we'll see what happens.
Thank God I'm retired. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
André, it's been confirmed that the South African team is going to play in Europe. How big will that be for some of your teams back at home?
Yeah, that's going to be massive for them. I just hope we draw one of them, Stormers or Durban, so we can get a nice trip to South Africa on the coast. But yeah, I think it's massive for South Africa rugby at the moment to compete against the best clubs in the world. I know we all know how tough that competition is. I think that's the best way where you actually see where you are in the world. And yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, last thing I need to ask you then, mate. You're playing with Danny Kerr. I put it out there on Twitter the other day. He is head and shoulders above any other scrum half in England at the minute. How do you chat to him about that? Because is he frustrated? Is it become a running joke at the club? He should be in the England squad, right?
Yeah, he should definitely be in the England squad. He is probably the best 9 I've played with ever. I say that about Marcus as well. He should definitely be in the English squad. Yeah, so obviously we can't pick the squad. We can't say who to pick, but yeah, if I was coach, he'd be my first choice, 100%. He's an amazing player. He knows how to read a game. He cleans the rucks quick. Yeah, and there's always a little bit of magic. So yeah.
And he's also had a hair transplant, which Hugh Jones said that you good South André, had gone down that route. But not being a city boy, I can't see how you've done that. Is that true or not?
Yes, that is true.
Yes, welcome to the club.
Great honesty.
It doesn't. Yeah, it probably doesn't matter if you come from the city or from wherever. But
I can't see farmers getting it. I can't see lads on the farm thinking, you know what?
Luckily, I'm not a farmer either, so I'm just in between. Yeah, but I had to. Probably gonna have to go for another one now in a few years' time. But we'll see what happens.
Oh, mate, that's amazing. Honesty is the best policy in that because you get outed otherwise. So, mate, I've had mine done. You've had yours done. What legends? Absolute legend. Anyone that, Jim, your turn next.
Mate, I don't need mine doing. I can't put my head down. Me next, folks.
André, thanks so much for coming on, mate. You've been class, and best of luck for this weekend.
Perfect. Thanks so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Thanks, André. Good luck, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks,
Cheers. Come on, the Quins.
Cheers. Bye.
Top bloke.
Yeah, we do like our Sappers, don't we? The big South African boys. And
I love South Africans. I love South Africans. I really do. I think looking at the size of them and the power, it's like just similarities is what I'm trying to say. I love them.
Very, very different, Jim. Very different. Back in the day, maybe when you were at Edinburgh, when you were an absolute wildebeest or a water buffalo, however big you were, maybe then. But no, he's a great bloke. You can hear that. And he's obviously, do you know what? They've always needed a 12 Harlequins, someone like that gives them go forward. But he's changed his complete mindset because he's playing with these unbelievable players like Caden Murley. He said it himself. Caden Murley, one of the best wingers in England right now. It's great to hear. And I'm licking my lips about this weekend. And he is as well. He cannot wait to run at Owen Farrell.
Yeah, I can't wait either. And you know what? a man who's honest about his lid and wants to come on to the millions and tell him he's had his lid done. And the honesty around the hatred. It's a big old word, hatred. Yeah. Adds to it. That's what it is. There is that hatred. I remember when I was at Saracens back in the day, but I remember they tried to shield us and were in denial around that hatred that Harlequins had in terms of, we're not going to rise to this, we're not going to rise to that. You got to. Because if a player like André Esterhuizen is talking about the hatred, that means he's ready. He's ready to go. He is ready to run down that 10 channel. He is looking for the crease at the back of that line now. And it is on. So it's going to be a humdinger, as both the games are going to be. And he's a delight to watch. We've spoken about him loads on here, obviously, this season. And hey, if you're struggling to go forward, bring in a sapper. If you're then still struggling to go forward, get the checkbook out and bring in André Esterhuizen, because you're going to get over the game line every time.
Well, to finish up with the Premiership, let's get your predictions for the Premiership semi-finals. Saracens, Quins. Jim, you must be split 50-50 on this, mate.
Hard to call. So as a pundit, as an expert, non-expert, whoever you speak to, I think this is a really hard one to call, because I think we've seen two sides of Saracens this season, haven't we? We saw the one side against Gloucester, but I know they had a second team out. We saw one side losing to Edinburgh at home in the Challenge Cup, if you go back that far. And then we've seen the other side to Saracens, Gloucester, a few weeks ago, where they were really good. We saw them against Toulon, where they weren't very good. So I'm struggling with Saracens this season to see where they are, whereas Quins seem the more complete team. They're the current champions. But I think out of all the teams that Harlequins can play, Saracens are the team that defensively, well, André mentioned it as well, are the team that, unless you get a high lead against them, they're always in it. And defensively and physically, I'm going to say Saracens. Not that I want Saracens to win. I'm not saying that. I'm going based on stylistically and the fact that I think they're going to be raging after the weekend and they're going to be on it. And I think that it's going to be Saracens in the final and Saracens to win by 7.
Yeah, it's contrasting styles, isn't it? You know, we just spoke to André there and he understands exactly what Saracens are about. Quins, if they do leak tries, Saracens aren't the sort of team to let a deficit go. They put the stranglehold on you, don't they? You know, they'll have all their big boys back. Mara will be back, and Billy and Mako, and it'll be a very, very different outfit to what went to Gloucester. So I don't think that'll bother them at all. I'd love to see Quins do it though, in terms of style over substance. I just think Quins play quite loose, as we know, and they've got the ability to break from anywhere. But I just don't think Saracens give you that many opportunities. The physicality that they bring. Yeah, I think Sarri. I'm going to say Quins. Quins by 4.
That point's a great one. That's a great point. I don't think Harlequins will be allowed to. Harlequins going to have to play a different way to beat Saracens. That's the point that you're making, because Saracens' strongest part of their game, as we know, yes, it's defence, it's their kicking game, right? So with Owen Farrell and whoever they pick at 9, their understanding in the kicking game, they're not going to give Harlequins the possession. They're going to get possession from line out, they're going to kick the ball out, or they're going to kick to compete. And it's whether or not Harlequins have a plan B if they can't score a shitload of tries. So you've gone, what, Harlequins by 4?
Harlequins by 4. Come on, the Quins. Come on, you Quins.
And the old grudge match, Leicester, Northampton.
Again, it's contrasting styles, isn't it? You know, you've got a team in Leicester who play a bit of risk-averse rugby. They kick a lot. They kick exceptionally well. They play a territory game. George Ford pulls the strings really well. He has got threats outside him. Obviously, Ashley on the wing can poach from anywhere. The story about Chris Ashton being an ex-Northampton player, where, do you remember he got sparkoed by Manu in the semi-final years ago? And ironically, now he's pulling on the Leicester Tigers jersey. Maybe Ashley
you say sparkoed. You say sparkoed. I've never seen a man take a better punch in my life, ever. In my life.
I know. Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. The fear on his face, though. Yeah, it's hard to look past Leicester. They haven't lost at home all year. Saints, the form they're in, they leak a lot of tries, but they can score a boatload of tries as well. Dan Bigger against George Ford at 10 is going to be really interesting in terms of game management. I think Bigger, I'm a massive fan of his. He's absolutely class. But when you look at that Saints back line, again, you've got the likes of Hutchinson, Dingwall, Proctor, Tommy Freeman, George Furbank, they want to have a crack, but I think they may just get suffocated a little bit by Leicester and how they play. It's going to be off the charts in terms of physicality. Courtney Laws will be trying to bash Jasper Visa and vice versa. Dan Cole, my old Pebblehead, he'll be at it at scrum time. I think Saints will struggle at set piece at scrum time.
Yeah.
Genji will be all over it. Montoya, if he's fit. I know there's a bit of an injury doubt over him. He's been their player of the season so far. So I can only see a Leicester win, really. As much as Saints have got the attacking ability to cause a lot of damage, I can only really see a Leicester win by 10 points. Come on, you Tigers.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I want to see Northampton give it a go. It's one of them where you want to see them play the Northampton way. Go there and play your game, which is wide, which is offloads, which is little kicks through. Dan Bigger kicks the balls in the air. Go for the high ball yourself. Stop making the tackle on the floor. Go for it yourself. I want to see them throw caution to the wind. And then that way, they've left no stone unturned. When Leicester beat them at Welford Road the other week and they absolutely hammered them, they dominated them physically. Like, obviously, that can't happen. It's a one-off game. It's great to see East Midlands derby, but I just think Leicester, top of the log this year. The one game for them will be if they come up against Saracens, in my opinion, in the final, because they're stylistically, because of the Borthwick, Wigglesworth influence, very similar. But anyway, it's not about Leicester Saracens. It's about the East Midlands derby, and I just think Leicester, top of the log, closer than we think, 6 points.
Just going to throw it out there. Leicester, do you remember they put 50-odd points on Saints earlier in the season?
Yeah, as well.
They've smashed them twice, haven't they? So it takes some turnaround. But yeah, Leicester comfortably, I think.
Well, the winners of those semi-finals will face each other in the Premiership final at Twickenham on Saturday, the 18th of June. And this year, we're all looking forward to having a full stadium once again for what promises to be the pinnacle of a hugely entertaining season, with world-class action and unmissable entertainment on and off the field. So don't miss out on the last tickets this week before the remaining tickets get snapped up by the fans of the two finalists. Go to premiershiprugby.com/final to get yours now. Lads, you played an impressive 8 Premiership finals between you. Got any memories that stand out?
Guilty. Did you play in 5, Andrew?
I certainly did, James. 08.
Why are you nodding? Oh, look, why are you nodding? Like, yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember them. I think it was 01, 05, 06, 07, 08. Is that right?
How weird that we played in that 06 game together against Sale. I don't know.
I saw your try on TV the other day.
How good? How big was I?
Mate, you were an absolute water buffalo.
I had curtains. My hair was like, I had literally curtains, an undercut, 135 kgs, one shit tat, and I pick and good at 50 to 1. I mean, it could have been 10, 15 metres, but looking at the footage, it was closer.
It was about 10 centimetres, pick and go through the middle of the ruck.
Hey, that was my speciality. Julian White, 2 Buffaloes, and I was at 50 to 1 to score a try in that game, and all I'm saying is the Colskins had a hell of a night. Not me, because we lost. But who would have thought that 2006 we played that game? And look at us now. We both look significantly different. One better than the other in terms of aging. But
let's have a look at the URC final 8 now. Then, Jim, what happened to Glasgow?
Oh,
they scored first. They scored first. And that was it.
I called it, didn't I? I kind of called it in a half jokey, half taking the pish out of Scotland rugby kind of way and half serious. And Jim, your words, you said, I think it'll be a lot closer than everyone thinks. I said, I'm pretty sure that this could be a 70-pointer. And it was embarrassing, wasn't it? But like, it's a quarter final. And to me, you don't want to go too hard, but collectively, there were some players on that pitch. When you look at the review of the game, and you look back at stuff, the effort just wasn't there in a knockout game. What you said earlier, Jim, around Premiership, where there was a couple of dead rubbers, it wasn't a dead rubber, it was a quarter final. Yeah, that
was a disappointing thing. That's the most disappointing thing out of that game, is that one line you've just said there.
Yeah, they had pretty much an equal amount of caps on the field, an equal amount of internationals. You know, obviously Leinster are the top dogs in that league from where they finished in the league, but geez, Glasgow, that's embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I knew they were going to get beat, well beat. And again, if you look at Leinster this season, especially in the URC, they're across the board over the last 4 years pretty unplayable at times. Now, we know how the season's gone for them. We know they got beat by La Rochelle in the final. But this season, La Rochelle really is the only team that has dominated Leinster. So, I mean, properly, across the board, right? So Glasgow, regardless of what team Leinster are going to put out, right, we're always going to struggle. But the point that you made there with it being a quarter-final, so it wasn't just another game. Glasgow was still in it, right, as in to get into the semis, get into the final, finishing 8th. They got the short straw to play Leinster, who finished top. It was always going to be tough, but at no point ever do you expect to see a quarter-final and get 70-odd points put on you. Like, you just don't. And that's when you look at it like that. And I do feel for them because we've both been in games before where it's 10, 20, 30, 40. It's unwinnable, right? And then it's 50. And then you're playing against a team like Leinster, who, as we know and we've harped on about all season, when they go, and they're phenomenal. To a man, 1 to 15 in terms of attack, in terms of close to the try line. And yeah, it's a rude awakener, not just for Glasgow, but for Scottish rugby because of Glasgow. I thought Edinburgh gave a much better account of themselves and put up a much better fight, which we knew they would. They've been good this season, but the back end of it, they haven't. And then, like we did with Montpellier, when they got absolutely hammered against Leinster, you've got to say it how it is. And Richie Gray was lucky not to get sent off. He went charging through the ruck on Jameson Gibson Park, who did dive a little bit, but he was lucky to get away with the yellow card. Ollie Smith got yellow carded for an intercept just after half time. And you go down to 14 men twice in a game, then you're chasing your tail, but not by 74 points you ain't. So it's a rude awakener for Glasgow. And again, I personally think they've overachieved this season in terms of the budgets that they've got. And Scotland Rugby need to probably look in terms of their investment, as there is no salary cap, in what they do into their 2 teams that they've got. Because you look at South African teams in the URC now, and you look at the Irish teams, who's competing with them? Really? So it is what it is. And yeah, Glasgow needs to be better than 74 points, that's for sure.
Goodey, you were pretty vocal on how disappointing Munster were against Ulster on Twitter, weren't you, mate?
They had the shits.
Well, I have heard they had the shits, but again, quarter-final against, you're basically vying for the second best team in Ireland spot, right? Because Leinster are that much better than everyone else. But you'd think Munster, the history and the pride of that jersey that's been shown over years in various competitions, you've got players like Omani who live and breathe Munster rugby, would die for the jersey. It just wasn't there collectively. And, they didn't come out before the game and said they were on their shits. It's just you're watching it and there was drop balls. There was, times when you're questioning effort of players. And that doesn't sit right for a Munster fan. The history of that club and that province of how they've always, minimum requirement is maximum effort. Skill level, you can fault, but and you can let that slide. But to me, it was just abject. I've never seen in a knockout game, a Munster team. I'm not saying they didn't try, but they weren't anywhere near at the races. It wasn't a performance that you'd, even when you're losing, associate with Munster as a province, with everything that they've done previously. So it was a sad end to Van Graam's era. I know there's a lot of ex-Munster players and a lot of fans that are happy to see the back of him. And, I'm watching the game and I'm thinking, Graham O'Rowntree, the only way is up. The only way is up. And so he's obviously got a few Leinster boys going back there in terms of history. Dennis Leamy is going back to be defence coach. So there's going to be a lot of passion there next season. But they've been poor, haven't they, this year? And to not rock up in a quarter-final against another Irish province, I think is pretty shocking.
Whereas we see Munster on the slide, Ulster equally on the rise at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, finished 3rd in the competition. We've spoken about them gradually throughout the season, and I think they're brilliant to watch. I think what Dan McFarland, Roddy Grant, good mate of mine, amongst other in the coaching setup have done there by recruiting Dwayne Vermeulen, who, again, I thought has been excellent, durable, wants to play. As soon as he turned up, he wanted to play, having just had COVID the week before. So it shows this kind of culture that they've got. They've got some homegrown lads from Northern Ireland. They've brought in, lads from across Ireland who've come through the Leinster Academy. And they're a good team. Cohesion's there. I think they're pretty honest when the performance isn't there as well this season. When they've not played well, I think they have honest evaluations of how they play and how they can be better. And I think they're competing at the level in which, as a coach, you'd want them to. I think Dan McFarlane is getting the very best out of that team. And they're blood and young talent. Goodey, one of your favourite players in the centre. James Hume has been absolutely carving up. Balakoon on the wing. Obviously, Mike Lowry, when he's played this season, has been excellent. We've had him on the pod. Nick Timoney, we're speaking about Dwayne Vermeulen. Nick Timoney in the back row, excellent every time that he plays. He's a bull of a player. So what they've now got is they've got strength and depth. The big thing for Ulster is the reward for beating Munster is they've got to go down to the Stormers in South Africa and play. And this is the big thing, right, around the complexities of the URC and how it's going to unfold. Like, travelling ain't easy. Do you know what I mean? So you're not just travelling across the way. Like, you go in 12, 13 hours on a plane, or a bit longer if you're going via London. I don't think Belfast flies direct to South Africa. I don't want to be horrible, but I don't think they do. But that's going to be the big thing with the travel that's going to be involved going down to Cape Town, hopefully trying to beat the Stormers, and then you've got a final, including travel at the end of that. So massively impressed with Ulster this season. Love watching them play, score some fantastic tries. And yeah, they're the ones to look out for.
Jim, you mentioned the Stormers there. They lie in wait for Ulster. What do you make of them against #Always Edinburgh?
Yeah, all right. I thought they were all right. I don't want to sound harsh, but in terms of what I've seen from Leinster and Ulster, and I'm really happy to see the Stormers obviously in the mix. We spoke about them playing against Edinburgh. I knew Edinburgh weren't going to get hammered. They've got a slightly different DNA. They've got a different look to their team, to what Glasgow have. They beat the Sharks in South Africa at the back end of the season. It was always going to be tough. And for Edinburgh, they fought right down to the very end. Yeah, the turning point for Edinburgh was losing Magnus Bradbury, who, as we know, is off to Bristol's next season. And just that lack of, it's not lack of discipline. It's just in fine margins. When you're in it and you're up against a quality team like the Stormers, you can't have lapses in concentration like that. But I think for Edinburgh, it's been a fantastic season for them. A debut season as head coach for Mike Blair. The Argentinian kind of flair that they've got with the Scottish contingent that they've got in the team. And I think they've given a brilliant account of themselves. Beat Saracens in the Challenge Cup this year. And to go down to Stormers and give them a run for their money, everyone thought Stormers was going to win. Everyone thought they were. And I thought Edinburgh went right down to the wire in that game. And it's credit to Mike Blair and the coaching staff and the players.
You guys weren't bothered too much about Bulls Sharks. Ended up being an all right game, though.
Went all the way down to the 84th minute, the magic number. And one of the most South African names of any human being you've ever heard. See if I can get the pronunciation right. Chris Smith. Chris Smith dropped a goal to win the game. And I said I weren't bothered in terms of, like, personally, like either or. Bull Sharks, didn't really matter who made it through. Sharks have been good this year. You look at on paper from, again, I mention it all the time, a superficial standpoint, the Sharks look like they should be so much better than they actually are at the minute. And they've signed Eben Etzebeth the next season. I thought Sharks look stronger, but the Bulls have been better this season. Well, they finished third. So it kind of shows you on paper, really, how they've done. So positive leap forward. And it'll be good to see Eben Etzebeth back there and the Sharks improving. Sia Khaleesi's obviously there. I get Cheslin Colby back as well. Why not?
Should we leap forward and get your predictions for the semi-finals then?
Go on.
Leinster Bulls.
Leinster by 30.
Oof.
Big one. Yeah, I'm up there. The Bulls haven't travelled that well. Yeah, they've got a bit of power and all that stuff, but Leinster are still raging. They put 70 on Glasgow. I'm going to go Leinster by 28.
Stormers Ulster.
Desperate for Ulster to win this one. As much as
it'd be close.
As much as it'd be great to see a South African team in the final. I think I honestly think that Ulster have got too much. Yeah, I watched the Stormers at the weekend against Edinburgh. They're okay. It didn't set the world alight. I'm a James Hume fan. If James Hume's fit and firing, obviously Mike Lowry's out, so he was another man crush of mine. But yeah, James Hume, man of the match again. I'm going to go Ulster by 6.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tight. I reckon Ulster 6 to 9 points. I reckon it's just going to be stuffy, but I think Ulster are the more complete team.
Let's take a look at this week's shout-outs. Start with you, Jim.
Yeah, we've got a few. Like I said, end of season charge. We've got a big shout out to Adam Nunn and Ron Rutland, who are doing the cycle across the globe, Andrew, which is the world, and it's a long way. It's Tokyo to Paris to deliver the Rugby World Cup whistle for the opening game at the Rugby World Cup 2023, while raising money for @Child Fund Rugby. So you can follow them and get involved on Instagram by going to @Race2RWC. So Race2RWC if you want to check them out and see what the chase like.
And Jim, you said you were going to do a few legs, didn't you? Probably going to go Tokyo to Dubai or something, didn't you do?
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will online. I'll follow them online. No problem.
Yeah, massive shout out to all the cyclists doing the Across the Globe Challenge. I'm going to go full Steve McLaren now because we've got a shout out coming from the Netherlands. So a big shout out to Cheers Hilly and everyone at Rotterdamse Studenten Rugby Club in the Netherlands.
That was very good. Very good. Very good. Let me just have a go at that. Stratarten Rugby Club. That's the Scottish roll of the R's there.
But more importantly, the Rotterdamse Studenten Rugby Club in the Netherlands has won promotion from the first and the seconds. Apparently, they are all big listeners of the podcast. So well done, everyone, lads. Stop.
You sound like Sean Connery from Ireland.
Thanks, Goodey. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Producer Tristan, and thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube and make sure you're subscribed on Spotify.
Rugby Spot.
Spotted pod.